The authority of the Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. Notice is given that both a video and audio recording will be made of this meeting. The agent will now call the roll for attendance.
Arthur Page.
Here.
Kurt Turner.
Here.
Bob Garner.
Here.
Judy Keys, absent. Dan Shinnick.
Here.
Sam Strife.
Here.
Howard Vogel.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum present.
Very good. That brings us to our first item, which is payroll and or vendor bills.
Yes, for your consideration, I would like to request authorization for the payroll to be dispensed. That wasn't good.
The relay just came on.
I know it disappeared, now it's come back again, and I don't know what. From the technology. I attended the MACC conference and am requesting reimbursement for mileage. It's held down in Leominster, went to morning workshop.
And how was that?
Trail building and permitting, it was very good. And afternoon workshop discussing riverfront regulations and getting into analysis and that type of stuff, which is kind of getting into the weeds of the
Yeah.
riverfront.
Good attendance?
Yes, yes, better than the last one. I think they told me it was over 200 people, and the previous one had been, I think, 180, I think.
Wow.
So, yeah, very well attended.
What's going on with your machine?
I do not know, to be quite honest with you, so. So ignore the man behind the curtain, or the black screen, and just for you to
Yes.
authorize my mileage calculations. I use MapQuest to figure it out.
And your car is all back?
My car is all back, yes. Better than it was.
Sounds
I
like
actually
quite so bad.
polished and shined on my tires, which was
I
totally
couldn't tell
unexpected.
today, is it?
No, yeah, you can't tell now, but my wife was like, "Did you tell them they had to do the tires?" I'm like, "I knew nothing about that." They went above and beyond. God bless them. Well,
That's it for
it's
the vendor
still
bills?
churning here, so we'll have to use our hand display. We
Yeah.
do have some minutes to take a look at.
Okay, we have 3 previous minutes, which we'll do one at a time. The first one is the October 2nd, 2018. Did everybody have a chance to take a look at the electronic version?
Yes.
Any questions or alterations, errors? Do I hear a motion to accept that as presented?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. The next is the October 2nd, 2012. Did anybody have a chance to take a look at that? Questions, alterations? Do we have a motion to accept that as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Approved, thank you.
And the final one is the October 23rd, 2012. Everybody have a chance to look at the electronic version? Is there any questions, alterations, missing, anything? Do I hear a motion to accept that as presented?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approved, thank you.
And you've all got a copy, plus an electronic copy of the next conservation meeting schedule for 2019.
Now, usually what we do is just, this is, giving it to you folks to, take a look at. We can certainly actually move on acceptance at the next meeting if you so wish. As usual, we make every attempt to try and stay away from town meetings or other significant events.
Let me ask you it in a different way. Is there anyone other than a Tuesday? Usually when you do, you mention
January 2nd. He has an-
Wednesday, okay, great, yeah. That would be the only thing that would throw me. Okay. All right, do I hear a motion to accept that as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
Okay, I'm sorry, who moved? Howard? Who seconded?
Dan.
Now, this next item, we've been following for a while. That would be the conservation restriction at Dodge Reservation, 390 Weathersfield Street, map 18, parcel lot 7, Essex County Greenbelt Association, and Town of Rowley.
Only a status report, and that is that it's been submitted to EEA for them to conduct what probably amounts to a final review. If they don't submit it back to us with any further tweaks or anything, then they'll send it into their legal department. So we're on the final,
Okay, so,
we're on the final countdown, so to speak.
we'll have this at next meeting probably at least.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Of course, the more you get to the end of the year, the more
Oh.
that office has stuff going on. But this CR has already been down to them for a couple of,
Right.
of sessions. So it's anticipated that we hopefully will more than likely not see anything except if it goes into their legal department and their legal department finds something they wish to.
It's not like it's holding anything up for anybody involved.
No. No, but Greenbelt and the town would like to get this in place since we own the property now for 3 years. yeah.
So what happens after this? Once they go through it, done deal? I mean, do we have to do anything at that point, or?
Well, if the commission so chooses to sign it, then we issue a recommendation and we submit it to the selectmen.
Okay.
Because town council's been involved with it, usually the selectmen consider town council's review status and the commission's acceptance, that they usually don't have any, they usually consider that that's.
So we accept and then they accept it. and it's done.
Then there will be the request from Essex County Greenbelt for the endowment for them to hold the CR. And they're gonna produce a baseline report, and they will also take care of annual monitoring and stuff. But we voted and appropriated through the Community Preservation Act. Forgive me, I don't have the figure right on the top of my head. It's either 15,000 or 17,000 for them to perpetually
Monitor.
hold that, monitor it, and also engage in defense if there's any need to defend any type of intrusions or something to it.
So we don't have to vote on this to put that in the next meeting?
No, it's just a status report. I just wanted to keep it on there just to let you folks know and just kind of cover the.
Well, the next thing is the conservation restriction on 42 Newbury Road, map 5, parcel lot 40, John E. Sullivan Jr. and Christine Mason.
Okay. This has just yesterday come to us with an authorization from the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs that the draft conservation restriction has been approved as of October 22nd. This is a letter to the applicant's counsel, Dear O. Bradley. Please find attached to this email a copy of the approved conservation restriction that has been reviewed by EEA Legal and cleared for local signatures. Do not make any substantive changes to this approved draft without informing us, as any further changes will need to be reviewed. Minor changes, such as formatting or to correct typos or misspellings, do not require notification. Please proceed with obtaining local signatures and those of the grantor and grantee. Once obtained, please return one fully executed CR in a hard copy to me. Parentheses, you may keep original signature pages and provide copies, along with a 3-page label or pre-stamped and addressed envelope for return mailing for final legal review. Missing dates, unnotarized signatures, and other inconsistencies on signature pages or missing exhibits can delay this final review. So please ensure the final signature pages and exhibits are complete. The CR will then be left with Secretary Beaton for his final approval and signature. We cannot guarantee a specific timeline for this final review process. I look forward to finalizing this. Please remember to use our internal CR reference number and CR number in all correspondence and inquiries. Sincerely, John Joya, Conservation Restriction Reviewer. Now we have a final approved CR for the Commission's consideration and possibly signing it tonight if you so choose. There is one contingency though, and that is that the plan prepared that is going to accompany this CR, which shows the trails and wetland resource areas on the open space parcel, not on the private development OSRD portion of the property. That needs to be recorded. We're on town council's advice, my advice, and also support from EEA. The question was brought up about whether it needed to be recorded, whether it could just be an exhibit of shrunken size put in with the CR, but we're all in agreement that this plan should be recorded because the plans for the open space residential development, which are an 8-sheet plan set, where they depict the open space parcel, they show absolutely no interior features, they don't show the trail, and because this is going across private property, the trail is actually where the public access is allowed, where we are allowed to maintain the openness of that trail or whatever. So it's important, both town council and I firmly support having the plan recorded. At first, the applicant's counsel made the request and said that it would cause a further expense in drafting, etc. But the plan that was given to us was already signed and stamped and also attested to the fact that it was ready and met the requirements for recording at the registry. So we're of the opinion, and we would like the commission to confirm our recommendation that it be recorded. We believe they just need to produce a Mylar and then need to give us a hard copy with the signatures and stuff. At least that's my impression, that once it's all attested to by a professional land surveyor, stamped, signed and dated with the registry block and attesting to its capabilities of being recorded, that you just need to produce a Mylar and take it to the registry and pay whatever the fee is involved.
I don't see any problem with that.
Seems reasonable.
It should be fine.
Do you want a motion to that effect?
Yes, please.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so, consent to this. the next step will be to submit this to the selectmen, but I contacted the owner's council and I told them that we're only going to advance this to the selectmen once that plan is recorded, so we can fill in the spaces on the page that had been provided for that. This doesn't end up going to the registry, the CR itself doesn't end up going there until such time as the secretary
Right.
signs it, so there's that, so it's not like we're making them go to the registry and just go, you know, a couple days later, again, a repetitive visit, to our understanding. So there, that is manually final. Final count passes. Apparently there's some kind of error in the PDF
Yeah,
document.
I gathered that.
Computer will not display it, so I think that
745.
takes care of
Yeah.
it. And you're here, you're not in Manchester by the Sea?
Nope.
Okay.
Was told to be prepared, but
That's
he
right.
not be here on.
Things went fine, so they were right on schedule.
All right, this is a legal notice for the Raleigh Conservation Commission. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended in the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw, a public meeting will be held on Tuesday, October 23rd, 2018, 7:45, Room 5, Town Hall Annex, 39 Central Street, to consider the request for the determination of applicability for the application filed by Debbie and Dave Hume for the proposed construction of subsurface sewage disposal system possibly within 100 foot of the buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands, DEP approved groundwater protection area, Zone 2, at 38 Boxwood Road, Map 5, parcel lot 29, Raleigh, Mass. You have the floor.
Good evening. For the record, John Moran from the Moran Cameron Group. We're here tonight representing Debbie and Dave Hume for a request for determination of applicability filed for their property at 38 Boxford Road for the replacement of a failing septic system. This replacement is considered a repair because it's not an increase in design flow. So it's an existing 3-bedroom house. The septic's designed for 3 bedrooms. The septic's not failing on the ground, but they are starting to experience issues with the septic system. They're not selling, so they didn't do a Title V inspection. It's just they're noticing issues with the existing system. So the plan that you see before you, Boxford Road is at the bottom of the screen, bottom of the page. On the northerly side of the left side of the property is actually the edge of the wetlands. You can see them in green. What you see in blue is the lot. It's about a 30,000 square foot lot. And all the structures are tucked towards the front. There's an existing detached garage and existing dwelling. Currently, the existing septic tanks on the westerly side or the right-hand side, the southerly side or the right-hand side of the existing dwelling pinched between the lot line and the structure. And the existing leach field is out in the front yard. So what we're proposing is, you may recall, we were here before the commission back in late August with a request for determination of applicability for soil testing in the buffer zone for the replacement of this septic. We actually found very well-drained soils, deep water tables right behind the house, which we were hoping for. What that allowed us to do is minimize the amount of disturbance in the buffer zone. So the green line right here you can see is the actual 100-foot buffer. So what we're proposing is we're going to have to replace the existing septic tank that's outside the commission's jurisdiction, and about 3/4 of the proposed leach bed is outside the commission's jurisdiction as well, with just this very small section out in the back that's within your jurisdiction. The septic system is about 88 feet from the edge of the wetland. The existing septic's about 80 feet, so we're actually further from the wetlands than the existing leach field is today. The Board of Health does require a 100-foot setback though for a leach field to a wetland. So we have filed for relief with the Board of Health for that requirement. And we've also filed for a reduction in the setback to the property line because Raleigh Board of Health requires a 30-foot. Based on the existing topography, we're looking for a 28-foot setback. That allows us to keep it even further from the wetland. We really can't go any further because right now you're dealing with a large slope right here. And if we tried to push it any further into the hill, then we'd be putting retaining walls in. So we're not proposing to do that. Again, you know, you're looking at 88 feet from the wetland edge to the leach field. You're 80 feet from the wetland edge to the erosion control. You can kind of see the existing tree line, so you have about 30 feet of existing lawn before you get to the existing trees, and then about another 50 feet of wooded buffer zone, very gentle slope before you get to the wetland. So that's why we filed a request for determination of applicability instead of a notice. Very minimal work, works greater than 50 feet from the wetland, and the majority of the work's in existing lawn. Brent and I had a site walk out there, and one issue that Brent had brought up, the way they're gonna build this septic, as you can see, existing detached garage out in the front, existing dwelling, not a whole lot of space to try to get equipment through there to build the septic. So when we did the soil testing, we actually came in along the right-hand side or the southerly side of the property between the existing dwelling and the lot line. And that's how we're actually gonna build this septic. They're actually gonna come in, build the leach bed first, then we're gonna have to as-built, then they're gonna have to backfill it, and then work their way out, installing the line in the septic tank, backfilling as they go. It'll require additional trips out there for the survey, but that's really the best way to do this. So one concern Brent had is, in case this gets churned up a lot by the equipment, you know, we do have the replacement of existing tank, pretty well moderate, gentle sloping terrain across the front, all lawn. However, if we do end up with some sort of track or pattern through there, Brent's proposing after construction, if we need it, we'll just take a section of silt sock or hay wattle and just kind of U it right across that entrance. And it'll prevent any runoff that's kind of cutting across that lawn heading out towards the street. It'll just intercept that. And
But the slope right towards the street.
it actually does both. It actually comes across the front yard and starts heading towards the driveway. But once it hits the driveway, it's going right out into the street. So, and then it'll come
And
run down the
There's
street.
an intermittent stream
Yep.
right there. just-
Oh,
It'll come right down the
In that
street along our side and then just dump right back in to that intermittent stream that Brent's talking about. So we have no issues with doing that if we need to after the construction. At this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
any questions from the board?
I hate to modify his statement to the commission, but he actually is in error. The whole project is in our jurisdictional area under the local
Zone
bylaw
2.
because the lot is like 99% in the zone 2. There's only that little teeny corner, maybe big enough to have an outdoor grill.
The green is,
The green is all the zone 2.
Right.
So it's entirely within our jurisdictional area.
Just out of curiosity, since you are doing this, why don't you do it to be compliant with Title V,
With regards to what?
the septic redo?
Oh, because the issue with, we're requesting two local variants, two local upgrades under Title V. First of all, with regards to the Zone 2, since it's a repair, we do completely comply with the Zone 2 requirement because it doesn't apply when you're dealing with repairs of existing systems. With regards to Title V, the existing septic tank is about 6 feet from the lot line, about 3 feet from the existing structure. We're proposing the septic tank 6 feet from the lot line and 6 feet from the existing structure. So we're increasing our setback to the existing dwelling, maintaining the existing setback to the lot line. However, because of the limited space, the existing dwelling 16 feet to the lot line, you can't meet Title V, which is a 10-foot requirement. You need to be 10 feet from a lot line with a septic tank and 10 feet from a foundation. So since we only have 16 feet, you can't fully comply. So the only way to comply fully without a local upgrade is to move the plumbing to the other side of the dwelling. And we looked at that possibility, and all the existing plumbing, this basement's finished. We'd have to dig this all up and then punch a hole through the back, and you're looking at an expense of, probably $5,000 in plumbing. Again, under the state sanitary code, Title V, you are allowed to request these local upgrade approvals that are allowed under the Board of Health approves those. But the tank itself is actually outside the commission's jurisdiction. The other issue that we had for the local upgrade approval was to reduce the required setback, as I stated, from the lot line, and then reduce the required setback from the foundation. But again, we will be appearing before the Board of Health, I believe, next week. We did have to notify this abutter because under the local upgrade provisions in Title V, you have to notify the abutter that's affected by the relief that you're requesting. So since we're requesting relief to reduce this 10-foot setback to 6 feet, we have to notify the abutter Pino of that hearing.
Thank you.
Anything else, Brent?
No, I've proposed to the commission some conditions to be utilized in this situation. I do have the request though, the plan does not detail erosion control at all. So I'd like to request that the plan be revised, that we add a detail of compost or bark mulch, silt sock, Filtrex sock is I think kind of the standard. Specifically showing the proper means for butting two lengths together when they come together so that they don't get any false installations of them trying to bring it up over each other or something like that. Since through the backyard there will probably be multiple sections deployed out there. And I didn't know if a note should be added while we're doing that, because detailing the erosion control is an important feature of the plan, and since I'm going to reference this plan. And I didn't know while we're detailing that, if there's the ability to put a note or something talking about the post-construction deployment of the erosion control, if we can have something, because lots of times this particular plan sheet is the only one that's in the possession of the folks doing the site work, and so if the note is there, it will get them to implement that retreat strategy. And I really feel that as a precautionary basis, it should not be presented as being a option. I think it should be presented as being a requirement.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just in case. We're getting too many of these pounding downpours within short periods of time to just take a chance and have it mess up the human's front lawn.
Yeah, and what I'd recommend is that we just add it pretty much right after the tanks. That's where all the work's gonna be.
Exactly.
So right after that, we'll just
Yeah,
drop
that
it
was
right
my
there.
sentiment, basically on the side yard there.
Yep.
So you're all set with the recommendations that Brent has made?
Yeah, those are fine.
Look like anything unusual.
Yeah, so therefore, I've just, the contingency here that we wait for the revised plan so I can put the plan date, reference that in the conditions.
Okay, do you want us to wait before we?
Oh, no, I'm just saying, if you consider the vote today, so for your consideration, you consider a motion to issue a negative determination, option number 3, with conditions as stated, contingent upon submittal within 10 days and review and approval of the revised plan.
Do I hear such a motion?
So,
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. How many copies of the revised plan? Just two.
Just
Thank you.
SB Zone 2. Keep forgetting about it, and yet it's the most important thing if we wanna have drinking water.
Yes, yes. All right, this is our next item, the 8 o'clock item. Legal notice, Raleigh Conservation Commission, in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended in the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Public hearing will be held on Tuesday, October 23rd, 2018, at 8 p.m., Room 5, Town Hall Annex at 39 Central Street, to consider a notice of intent of application filed by Charles and Arena Hazen for the proposed construction of a subsurface sewage disposal system, possibly with a 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands at 12 Havel Street, map 15, parcel lot 82 in Raleigh, Mass. You have the floor.
Thank you. I'm Tom Mineta, Thomas Mineta Incorporated, representing Hazen's tonight regarding this application for a notice of intent. We were in front of the board a few months ago for a determination of applicability to do the soil testing, which we did do in the location that we suspected we'd be in, which is in the front of the property. So on the plan in front of you, the green, on my sheet anyway, the green is the wetlands, the orange is the no disturbance area that Brent and I had walked yesterday. The yellow is the 100-foot buffer zone. The tan color here is the proposed system. We have a septic tank pump chamber and a Presby design. And the purple color here is the existing dwelling. And the blue is the existing and proposed erosion control. Because we put erosion control out there prior to doing the soil testing.
Tom, where was the old system?
The old system, so we're replacing the tank basically in the same location. The old system, there was part of it here, we hit part of it up here. I think it's,
Was it an older system?
oh yeah, I think it's one of those systems that kept getting repaired and added to, and extended the line and that type of thing. We hit an old water line, we hit an old gas line. The only thing we didn't hit, thankfully, was the new water line. That unfortunately we need to reroute that existing water line to maintain the 10-foot separation to the proposed system. So, I mean, as you can see from this plan, the system is jammed to the front of the lot to the best of our ability. We have asked for some waivers from the local Board of Health regulations, as well as waiver requests that are allowed under Title V. Those have been approved. So we are in front of you now for the work.
I've got a question about your listing of variances here.
Yep.
Your third and your fourth ones seem to be identical, except that the proposed changes from 7.5 to 8 feet, and I don't understand the distinction between the two.
We actually revised that. One was for the tank and one was for the pump chamber. Oh, the cellar wall and the property line. One's for property line, one's, so the tank for the property line should say septic tank, and the other is for the dwelling. Because of the separation from the pump chamber and the tank.
That's the third and the fourth ones?
Yes, yep.
Okay, thank you.
The distances haven't changed. One, it should say tank, and the other remain as pump chamber.
We do not seem to be displaying the same plans. That is the plan that was filed with the office, which has the proposed no cut, no disturbance line connecting in with that old ancient shed building on the back, and you appear to be showing something much more different and much more intrusive into their rear yard.
That, you actually have, I must have plotted the wrong, so the 25-foot, I showed 25-foot off of here.
Yeah, well, we weren't going.
We weren't gonna
we
do
weren't
that,
gonna do
right?
that.
Yep, right,
So
right from our sidewalk, yep.
From our sidewalk, and so because one or two commissioners expressed concern, and one of the reasons that there was a notice of intent filing for this particular proposal is to establish consistency among the various houses. The commission had previously had the same type of repair, replacement on 10 Haverhill Street, right adjacent to this. And all of these properties, the rear boundary goes into a wetland system that contains an intermittent stream, which actually flows at that location. It's flowing in a westerly direction towards what used to be at one point in time a drinking water source.
Yes.
Actually down there. So anyway, the plan that's on the table that unfortunately I'm unable to display, but just for the commissioners, so the purpose of the site walk was not so much to assess the construction activity in the front yard, but it was to make sure that the implementation of a no cut, no disturb area would not be intrusive, would not take away pre-existing maintained rear yard, and would in fact be protective of the established wetlands and its fringe of buffer zone vegetation. So it's actually being expressed as a 5-foot variable width, because at its minimum distance, it's 5 feet. It doesn't come out onto maintained yard, except with one exception. Unfortunately, the maintained yard actually extends over into the neighbors behind a fairly prominent evergreen tree. The tree is actually expressed there, and apparently because that screens all activity, it wasn't noticed that this protuberance of mowing of lawn actually went past their boundary line and went over into some of the neighbors' area. Now, we're not enforcing anything in terms of trespassing or anything like that, but the establishment of this no cut, no disturbance is gonna let that area just revegetate. And so it will just normalize with the other unmowed vegetation that is on both sides of it. And it's, again, not gonna take away technically what is the Hazen's maintained, developed rear yard, except for a very minor couple square feet there, because most of the other square feet that's being mowed is actually the neighbor's property.
Did you actually flag it when you were out there, or?
The wetlands is flagged, but no, we're gonna write this up, so I will go out during the project phase and actually mark where these posts were in. The site visit was a verification that like I said, that implementing this and tying it into that old shed building back there, again, was not gonna diminish the usability and the ability of that residence to have a small backyard, but a backyard nonetheless that is big enough for grilling or whatever. You could possibly even probably get a small above ground pool if you wanted to put it back there. So it's so protecting the wetlands was a balancing act, fully done, fully cognizant of not quote unquote taking away what had been a small, if not usable, developed rear yard. So the idea was to be sensitive here, as well as then to be able to also impose the restriction for low nitrogen fertilization, since any fertilization of the lawn is going to immediately work its way into the fringing buffer zone, the wetlands and the stream there. So the commission has before it just the few special conditions that are proposed for that. And so otherwise, if the commission would so choose, you may wish to vote to issue standard order of conditions for a septic system installation with those few special conditions to be ongoing.
All right, any questions from the board? Any questions from the audience? A couple people I don't recognize.
I think Mr. Hazen's here tonight too.
Yeah, I have no question.
Are you fine with,
Yeah, everything sounds adequate.
okay.
Again, wanted to make sure we're respectful.
Yes, I appreciate it.
Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh, yes, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we did get a file number issued on that without any comment from DEP, so we'll be able to issue that permit in a relatively short order.
Tom, I am just gonna have to verify with you that we're,
That's the first sheet of the septic, I revised it.
okay, well, I just,
From, remember we had a meeting in the office laying that out? I revised the plan, so.
Right,
I took a
right.
copy of the septic sheet,
right.
and that's a Concom
Yeah,
sheet.
I just wanna make sure that all of us,
Yep.
including the Board of
We
Health,
do,
are
and
in
everybody's got the
uniformity.
same sheet, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. This brings us to our 8:15 item. We have a legal notice, Raleigh Conservation Commission, in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended with the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Public hearing will be held on Tuesday, October 23rd, 2018, at 8:15 PM, Room 5, Town Hall Annex at 39 Central Street, to consider the notice of intent application filed by Patrick Snow, Highway Surveyor, Town of Raleigh, for the proposed highway culvert replacement at the Georgetown Town line, possibly within 100-foot buffer zone bordering vegetated wetland, under the waterways at ROW.
That land under waterways.
Land under waterways, Raleigh, Weathersfield Street, map 10, parcel in Raleigh, Mass. All right, Pat's not here, who's taking it?
That's a good question.
Thought
That was gonna be.
You wanna try to run with it? Pat
Yeah.
might be very busy tonight.
Yeah, so, okay, well, let me see here.
Just the one that we worked on this week,
No, no.
it looks like it. With your hand sketch?
That's what I'm looking for my sketch. Yeah, did I show you my sketch?
Yes.
It's the one right on Wentworth.
Yes, right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's on the Georgetown Raleigh line.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna do the,
Or you.
Yeah.
so we have a galvanized metal culvert that don't know quite exactly what its birth date is, but it's definitely gone past the date when it should be replaced here. You can see that it's rotting out from the bottom, and you also notice that the roadway's been patched a little bit because we believe it's sort of settling itself down and becoming sort of egg-shaped or squashed a little bit. So there's a couple of different pieces of criteria that one needs to evaluate when one is contemplating a culvert replacement. One of the things is right now I'm displaying a picture of upstream where the quote-unquote stream is coming out of a virgin freshwater swamp. There's a stone wall on both sides of this corridor that probably defined the properties in the past when they were grazed or pastured or whatever. So the stone wall, in a sense, the gap in it actually confines the stream channel at this particular location, and it's about 6 to 7 feet wide.
Is that on the south side?
No, well, that would be that would be the the westerly side.
Okay, fine, gotcha.
I'm
Okay.
thinking that Weathersfield Street at that particular location is sort of running north-south, and so that's the
No, I think it's
westerly
east-
side.
East-west.
It's east-west.
East-west?
Mhm.
Yeah, and that
All right,
should
then that's the southerly
be
side.
south side.
I didn't use a compass on this. 'cause-
Okay, fine, good, just trying to
Whatever.
understand where you were looking from.
But yeah. So, but where you're viewing, the important aspect here is that is the upstream side, so that's the
Right.
inlet side. Where it comes down, the stone wall is about 20 feet away from the edge of the roadway, and the culvert is there. There's kind of a pool area, but that's the inlet side. So the outlet side is much different. This is actually a view of the outlet side. So that is a large boulder that's incorporated in the stone wall, so we've got the same basic characteristics of, on the outer edges beyond the right-of-way are stone walls on either side that already kind of, where they're gapped, that's where the stream has been allowed to flow. On this side, you see the channel is much less defined, it's much smaller. It extends anywhere from 16 inches to 2 feet. There's no plunge pool, so no sign that that culvert is actually perched and that the water's been dropping down and scouring out what they call a plunge pool. There isn't any sign of that at all. There also is a significant lack of wetlands vegetation coming up and actually intersecting the culvert itself. This photograph is just from the pictometry, and I'm not sure it's going to
It
be
doesn't
that.
show much.
Something that you might find of interest, I was coincidentally having dinner tonight sitting next to one of the abutters here on the north side, and they reminded me that every year eels keep coming to spawn
Right.
and make that crossing.
Right. So you can actually see the culvert in this location. Again, this is on the inlet or the southerly side, but it's really kind of hard to see the defined outlet channel on the other side. So returning to the sketch, it's over here. So basically, when you replace a culvert under the current stream crossing standards, you look to try and increase the openness. This particular site, though, is restrictive because there's only 16 inches of cover over that culvert, and it's already a 3-foot diameter culvert. Now, 3 feet doesn't seem like it's quite wide enough to incorporate where the inlet stream is coming from, but on the outlet side, as I tried to express in the diagram here, it's more than adequate in its width. Pat Snow tells me that even during the Mother's Day event, this section of roadway did not flood. Now granted, so that's just kind of, looking at the recent past, 2006, and saying that it appears the culvert is adequate to conduct the flow that goes through there. That could be because the wetlands system upstream is really extensive and not developed. Well, it extends both on Raleigh and into Georgetown a significant distance. So again, wetlands, one of the reasons we protect them is because they absorb stormwater flows, they slow it down, and they slowly release it. That seems to be the case here. But anyway, so we did make an attempt to see if it was possible to increase the size of the culvert just to, as best as possible, attain more openness going through it. But that really isn't a factor because you'd have to fill and raise the roadbed not only for 60 to 80 feet in the town of Raleigh, but you then have to go over to Georgetown and convince them to do it for approximately 80 to 100 feet to try and bring up so you'd have adequate cover over the top of a larger size pipe. But the proposal is also to already embed this culvert to a certain extent. So it's going to have the ability to have native soils and gravels through it to try to mimic a continuity of the bottom of the stream going through there. According to the measurements I took on the site or whatever, it is perfectly adequate to be able to do that. And actually the existing condition already sort of mimics that where there's still bottom of the culvert. It does have.
I think you're gonna find that most of the center is gone.
Yeah, most of the center's probably gone. So this is another reason why we definitely need to replace this.
Yeah.
Do they make oval shaped pipes? That would solve
Yes.
part of that problem.
No,
Well,
they're not as strong.
You sacrifice the strength and the rigidity that the ribbing gives you. But again, the ribbing, because I believe he's gonna use the high-strength polystyrene, the ADS or whatever, rib pipe. So that's actually gonna help put bedding material through there anyway to establish that habitat continuity from one size to the other
When do they wanna do the work?
as soon as possible.
So it won't affect the eels coming up in the spring?
Oh,
Well, the proposal, you know, this probably is not gonna take very long to accomplish. Again, it's good because there shouldn't be any impact to bordering vegetated wetlands because my field delineation of the BVW didn't have it coming up anywhere near the actual end of the pipe on either side. It's mostly, the pipe really ends at the base of the slope of the roadbed material. And on the upstream side where that kind of enlarged pool area is, there's a lot of sand and gravel that's come down, sort of the soil surface that's right at the inlet, where that sort of little bulb of a pool is, that's really all sand and gravels that have come off the roadway. Which is one of the reasons also why there's no wetlands vegetation growing in it, because it's all gravelly, stony mineral material. So the proposal would be for them to block the inflow with probably salt marsh hay bales or whatever. It's, you know, do this obviously in low flowing conditions as best as you possibly can, but with the idea that the priority is to replace the culvert because it's lost its structural integrity.
Why does it have to be a 36? Why don't they have like two 24s?
I
anytime.
asked Mr. Snow to give me any commentary or whatever, he just said he wanted to replace it
You think you have
in,
more depth?
in kind.
Well, on volume.
You'd actually cut
We've had this in
down,
other towns, when you have the 220, Brett and I talked about it earlier, you have 224s, you can handle more volume, but if it's not velocity, if it's just height, you're better off with a 36. And this obviously has worked, because it hasn't gone over the road, no signs of erosion. I think that the bottom fell out in the middle of that a while ago, that's why you have nice low flow on the.
On the other side, because
And
nothing
then
going
the
through.
plunge pool, I've seen it quite often
Stuff goes through,
made,
but not,
because the water comes rushing down and it can't go through, so it doesn't stop.
Well, I just thought there was a concern about the depth of cover. So
I don't
thought
think it
maybe-
will be, when you look at Brent's thing, there's no sign.
well, it's
of
the depth of cover only if you wanted to increase.
Besides
You
being
wanted to
it's
go
not
up to a
big.
48-inch
Yeah.
culvert.
But if you have lost a foot, we'll say on the bottom of that, that's why the water might stay on the up.
on the upside,
Okay. Just an idea.
Yeah, no, it's,
Exactly. The reality is I was requested to do the proposal this particular way to replace the pipe without.
and it's not easy to change the size pipe.
I know, you don't
No,
want, you don't want
no,
to.
I mean
Yeah.
permit wise,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's very hard.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So if the commission so chooses, the request would be to issue an order of conditions with appropriate standard conditions. You know, we're mostly dealing with erosion control and dealing with interrupting the flow during the period of construction, and then once the replacement gets in there, stabilizing and facilitating some spread of material through the bottom of the culvert in a controlled manner so that we don't get a bunch of silt and sediment moving downstream at all. But again, characteristics right now seem to be that it's a very steady, low flow, so there's not a high, not the threat of high velocity flow carrying a lot of sediment, even when the replacement is done. But we'd still do the normal thing of basically hay bales stopping the flow for the time period of doing the replacement. I sent this to Mr. Snow and asked him to review it and give me any comments back.
So what
He
can
said
we
he
do,
was going
what
to,
can you
but I
do
didn't.
tonight?
Pardon me?
What can we do tonight?
And if you're comfortable that we can condition this appropriately, it would be to issue an order of conditions for the
I'm
replacement.
much more comfortable with that than leaving it.
Yeah, I agree.
Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a boundary stone at that culvert?
Yes.
You know, there appears to be, but it's up in the roadbed,
Is it gonna
and
be
it's actually right next to the culvert, and it's leaning over,
Well,
which
the road is bigger
tells me,
probably.
that it doesn't go down very far, because it literally is sitting over the culvert, so it can't have a lot of depth to it. And the fact that it's cocked over and tilted a little bit tells me that it's probably been hit and bumped, and it's not really firmly.
So,
I don't know that it's anchored in the ground, and that I would take my satellite bearings from it.
right.
So what do you think that downflow goes? Is that thing to the Parker?
Oh, eventually it probably
No,
does,
it goes into the,
but eventually it probably
So
does.
where the heck would this go? This would make its way probably to Great Swamp Brook.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
It's a
because this is
tributary
on,
of Great
because this is on the
Flows into-
southwesterly side of
Mill?
the,
No,
Mill
of the
goes to
Maven
Clark.
Realty Trust property.
not really, come on, it's not, well, yeah.
No, but right in front of my house.
Yeah,
So you're in the gutter?
Hey,
Yeah,
To the river, yeah.
I was wondering if it got over to your.
Next one's continued.
I'll
so
just
you can
read it. Our 8:30 item.
Thank you.
This is a continued request to amend the order of conditions, DEP number 63-0625, at land off Daniels Road, map 9, parcel lot 23, Tompkins DeJardis Trust, Bruce Tompkins trustee, a request to amend the proposed construction of duplex buildings with associated roadways, driveways, utilities, stormwater facilities, creating possibly within 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands. John, you have the floor.
Good evening, my name's John DeCoulis, engineer for the project. And we received a technical review from the review agent, which we've gone over, and we feel confident that we can meet all their requirements on the stormwater standards. We haven't finished it, but I believe we can finish it before the end of the week and submit it to the Conservation Commission.
Brett?
So, Mr. DeCoulis, are you in receipt of the memorandum I drafted for the commission this afternoon?
Yes.
Well, the commission has a copy before them. I reviewed the technical report from Horsley and Witten and identified the eight different items that action was requested on. The only one that I'm unclear of is their statement, is number one, that there was a missing drawing. That was not identified. The list of items that I submitted to Horsley and Witten seemed to indicate it was complete. So I don't know, their report did not specify what they thought was specifically missing, but they did list out all the plan sheets, and there are a total of 10 plan sheets, which we had a sheet 10 of 10. So that's the only one I don't know about. Maybe Mr. DeCoulis can contact Horsley and Witten and figure out what drawing was missing. But everything else is pretty specific in terms of identifying exactly what needs to be addressed. And number 8 was a suggestion about the illicit discharge compliance statement. The reality is that it is more beneficial to have that be a condition included with the request for a certificate of compliance, and including the statement of compliance with the issued order at the time at post-construction, and having the illicit discharge inspection by a professional engineer at the time of project completion, because that's when you want to certify that there hasn't been any improper connections or discharges incorporated into the stormwater drainage system of the project, or that any of the residences have been properly tied into any of the stormwater infrastructure. So that, the policy has been to incorporate that as a condition in the order in conjunction with the request for a certificate of compliance, because that's really when it makes the most sense. Right now, filling out a statement and saying that there's not gonna be any illicit discharges,
Very easy
when
to do.
you haven't even put the shovel in the ground yet, yeah. So it's really the as-built project completion that we wanna know that there aren't any illicit discharges.
So John, you've seen this, these 8 items here,
Yes.
and you can address those when?
Right.
Yeah, okay. So, go for a continuance?
Yeah, so, Mr. Coolis is saying that he should be able to address that, within, 10 or 14 days, so, that would
That would give
hopefully
us ample
get
time
these
for our next
materials
meeting.
to us before the next meeting, yeah.
So that you'll have plenty of time before December 4th, yep, okay. Do I hear a motion to allow them to continue this for our next meeting, December 4th?
I'll make that.
November,
13th.
Oh, excuse me,
13th.
November, yeah, November. What was I looking at?
I don't know, we put both the next 2
Oh,
meetings
yeah,
down, so you may have been
you
looking
put
at.
doubles out there. Okay, November 13th, yes, definitely.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Just read from the,
Yes, this is continued item.
this brings us to our 8:45. Continuing notice of intent for the application DEP 63-0669 at land off Weathersfield Street, map 11, parcel 58, and 599, and 607, 615, 623 Weathersfield Street, map 11, parcel lots 53, 58-1, 58-2, 58-2A, Rowley Solar LLC, owner Marvin Revocable Trust, to discuss the proposed land gift and waiver of remaining wetlands fee, bylaw fee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom Beatrice for the applicant. You may recall at the last meeting that we had made a proposal for a land gift. Couple of issues have come up in the meantime. The preeminent issue is that part of the parcel that we had proposed is in Georgetown. And it was raised that a conveyance of land from another town may not be legal. Town council, as I understand it, addressed that issue by memo. I've also researched it, and it turns out there are a couple of options that the most viable would include the necessity of the selectmen's approval and also approval at town meeting to effectuate at least the Georgetown portion of that proposed land gift. So I've discussed it briefly with my client, and the information from town council, as I understand it, came in yesterday or today.
Yesterday.
So what we'd like to do tonight is ask for a continuance to the next meeting, because we will revise our proposal to basically delete the Georgetown portion of that parcel and sort of streamline it. We still will need planning board approval with respect to the subdivision of that particular lot, but by deleting the Georgetown parcel and increasing the Raleigh parcel, I think we can come up with something that might be acceptable to the commission.
I mean, it looks like it's what you're gonna have to do, I mean, for the, yeah.
He's looking for the expediency of
right.
one transaction instead of a partial and then waiting to go to a town meeting and getting town meeting vote or whatever.
That, you don't know how that's gonna turn out, and it's a risk that
Right.
not advisable to take at this point in time.
Okay.
Now, I did, for the commission's edification, I did advise him, though, that that would not delay the issuance of the order of conditions. The order of conditions would just contain a condition talking about that being accomplished within a mutually agreeable period of time, and the order could be issued prior to that, if that option was exercised. But so I just wanted to let the commission understand that the expediency in the land gift is not being pushed along by, it's not hindering the possible issuance of an order. The order could be issued prior to the gifting of the land and just cover and require contingency steps or whatever. So just, again, just for the commissions, just to understand what the overall scene is here.
Once we're agreed that we.
Once you're amenable to it, you can agree to issue the order, and the order would contain conditions that reflect, just as we did with 50 Newberry Road, where we put a condition in there that their gift of open space would have to be done, and Natural Heritage actually gave us a timeline on that, but we could have developed our own timeline with the applicant and property owner, so.
Okay. So you'd like it for November 13th?
Please.
Do we have to vote on that? No, this is.
Well, yeah, we're continuing this new,
Okay.
yeah.
Move to continue.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
How long's this been?
Way too long.
We gotta stop meeting like this.
Could have paid the fee and we'd be all set.
Oh, no, geez, all the other stuff that's
This is
going
not
through
the
there.
only board one before.
Yes,
Thank you
very
very much.
good, thanks.
Okay, thank you, folks. I am currently going on site, and since we did issue the stormwater permits, I am working with them and their site folks to do the marking of the limit of clearing.
Yep,
And so I'm going out, I think it's tomorrow, it's either tomorrow or Thursday morning, I can't remember which. I've been out there once, advised them a better way to implement it. I'm going back out to see if it's, if my dual marking method, which they saw.
While you're out there, are you gonna check your water level?
I can easy enough,
I haven't gone,
yeah, I certainly can.
yeah. You could do it just by a cruise by the Herricks, if you don't wanna go
Yeah,
down.
well,
to the bridge.
I was actually gonna weigh in with Miss Rossi, because I believe I should give her something that specifies breaching, I think, on that. So it's on my desk as something to do.
Should be in her possession, should she need it, I
Yeah,
don't
well,
think
she's-
she would need it, but,
She's got the permit from the Board of Health, so. that's-
right.
I'd like to raise an issue with regard to council's memorandum here, on the Maven,
Yep.
thing. He starts off saying, I understand the Conservation Commission wishes to accept by gift. That's inaccurate. We wish to consider acceptance, not, we haven't made a decision, we
Well,
still
oh.
haven't made a decision, so.
Right.
I don't like
Well-
that language particularly, but I'm just raising that. Don't
Right.
need to take it anywhere else.
May I provide the context of Judy Pickett, who has actually been advising us and is supposed to be advising us on this? We lost the continuity because a tree fell on her house a while ago, as well as hit her. Her house is undergoing renovations which required her within the last 48 hours to move out a substantial amount of the contents of her home. So the reconstruction and repair of the impacted structural integrity of the upper floors of her dwelling could be repaired. So she became incommunicado, not through any desire of her own, but just due to the circumstances. And Mr. Mullen stepped in to try and provide us with some words of wisdom, without the benefit of being fully briefed and having, you know, the benefit of long exposure to what this issue was, so.
Okay? Well, let's hope she's okay.
All right. the
Well,
next-
she is okay, and
Yeah.
hopefully she's back in.
She did get injured though, didn't she?
Yeah, she had a limb fall on her, yeah, she had a concussion for a while, so I believe that is all, I believe she's all back to being 100% in that, but it's her house that was significantly impacted.
The insurance company costs up pretty quickly on this one.
All right, that brings us up to the next item, which is a certificate of compliance request at the Rowley.
So this is the Rowley Country Club.
You just scan it through and through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we have a new request for certificate of completion, SMP 08-2013 on 237 Dodge Road, map 9, parcel lot 21. The residences at the Rowley Country Club Condominium Trust.
So we are actually at this moment waiting for a letter from the professional engineer, Mr. Rich Williams at Williams and Sparagus. They are overloaded and hoped that they were gonna get a letter to me by today. But either way, the issue was the shrub planting along the upper slopes of their stormwater basin that were to contribute to the various plantings that started at the basin floor and extended up the side. They had been negatively impacted by being mowed by a landscaper at one point in time. They were negatively impacted by not being watered at one point in time. Now they've been 100% reestablished. There's in-ground soaking hose delivering water to them when they need to be watered. They are flourishing, they've been replanted, they've established themselves, they've grown throughout this whole growing season. So I would be comfortable recommending to the commission that if you so choose, you could vote to issue a complete certificate of completion contingent upon the receipt of the letter from the professional engineer, because we already do have an as-built, and the project has been built and is, all my on-the-ground inspections have revealed that it is built as per it was designed and conditioned, and it has been functioning with just that one exception of that particular planting that had some faux pas.
Yes, I think that would be good. Do I hear such a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. What was that, blueberries that they put on the first time?
It was blueberries at first, yes, but then I convinced that, I consulted with Greg Hockmuth, the professional wetland scientist, and we both agreed that planting sweet pepper bush would actually probably be more resilient to the fluctuating moisture regimes of that. Because I've got it growing in my front yard and it's so far away from a wetlands, it isn't funny. And it does marvelous, once it gets established, and
Oh, yeah.
and it has great little blossoms that are very fragrant, very nice, and it becomes a real hubbub of activity for pollinators.
Our landscaper went in
Love it.
and basically,
Looks like weeds.
took it all out.
Well, yeah.
So now we
Zoom.
have signs that make it very clear to our landscapers not to go in.
Yeah, so let me get the signatures on this, yeah. Unfortunately, when you're riding around on one of those little mobile go-karts or whatever, you're just going in a straight line, and
Get your earphones on.
you got your earphones on, yeah, the bushes don't provide much of
So
a
do I sign or no?
mechanism to slow.
I don't sign this?
You can sign, it's an
It's-
administrative act, if
Yeah.
you feel, you just wanna
No, I-
maintain your arms like this.
you tell me
distance.
what it's supposed to do.
Enough said.
There you go.
Okay.
Status reports, permits and enforcements.
Don't really have anything at this time, but you will see a communication from me later on in the week.
Cookies, please.
Okay, it goes. So where did this come from?
I bought them.
You did?
Down at the
Down at
Red,
Raleigh Bread.
Red, yeah.
So, are we going to adjourn?
Yes, right, that's it for tonight's meeting. We'll, I hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
And we'll meet again on November 13th. All right.